to my earth signs Capricorn, Taurus and Virgo. Welcome to round 1 of Eclipse season 2024. You'll find the timestamps for your rising signs listed below. Hello Capricorn Rising, welcome to your reading for Eclipse season, round 1 of 2024. Now I've done a couple of things different this time around. Rather than give you separate horoscopes for each of the eclipses, I thought that we could speak about them together and then contemplate and have a rest over eclipse season. There's something about the sort of consistency of this work that doesn't feel quite right during such turbulent times. We know that when eclipses happen, the energy is unstable and we're working with a moon that we can't rely on. And so rather than trying too hard to roll against the tide, I've decided this time around to just let it take me and to focus on other projects too. So I will be with you soon with more information, more content as it were, more art. But it won't be based in horoscopes. It will be based in something else, and hopefully that will land for you later. It might not. We'll see. Anyway, let's focus on eclipse season. Let's look at the polarity on your chart and how one side of it informs the other. There's 2 eclipses this time around. The first is in Libra on the 25th of March, which I think is today if I'm getting these out in time. And this will be a Libra lunar eclipse. So the moon will be blotted out in certain parts of the world. That will be visual. I don't think we'll see it down here in Australia, but that doesn't change the effectiveness of the energy globally. The last time that we had an eclipse in Libra was October of last year, October the 15th to be precise. And this card, which speaks to the energy of Libra, normally about balance, about fairness, about the truth of the matter, about directness, and about liberty and justice, we really did find that it was in absolute reverse at that last eclipse, and has carried that energy quite sincerely for the 6 months in between. So we're going to register that as a connection, and we're going to sit with the idea of relaxing into, as best we can, the turbulence that the galaxy is mirroring in our lived lives at the moment. On the opposite side of that polarity, on the 9th of April, get your pen out if you need to take notes, we have Aries, the solar eclipse in Aries, which will be an exact eclipse, and it will be completely visible all the way across the United States of America. There's going to be something of celebration here at this time, and lots of folks I've heard of are gathering together to go and partake in the visual language of the eclipse. This eclipse is specific because it is happening at 19 degrees in exact conjunction with the asteroid Chiron. And Chiron speaks to unconscious wounding that lays deeper, deeper and deeper still, perhaps ancestral wounding, perhaps things that have been buried for a long time, and pain that it's difficult to heal without absolute help from others. I am really registering this as a moment, Capricorn Rising. If we look at the polarity, we see something about autonomy here, about individuality, and we see something about a collective sense of justice. We see an urgency towards the libertarian individual and fighting for one's rights, and how one ideology suppresses another faction or group of individuals. It's tense stuff, but it's stuff that we will definitely, without doubt, experience and see across the globe. In your personal life, Capricorn Rising, these 2 houses fall in your most visible public self, which is Libra, the one keeping the balance, the one with the eye on fairness, and in your private life in Aries, the fire starter. These eclipses may not show up directly in your life, but I'm going to explain them to you just in case there might be some things that you can recognize. There's something about an upheaval here, or there's an extra influx of energy and attention that is being harnessed and focused on your first house, on your fourth house, which is your roots and your grounding and your ancestry. There are stories and conversations here about the pain of those topics too. Perhaps the pain of where you came from, the pain of your ancestors. Perhaps there's been an overarching emphasis on these topics for some time, and it's been very difficult for you to find your footing amidst these historical stories or amidst this focus on the past. We're going to register that the moon, which does rule your seventh house of your relationships, is unstable at this time. It's unreliable. So perhaps during eclipse season, this might be perfect time for you to contemplate and to be kind with yourself, to stand on your own 2 feet without so much the comfort of the moon, and look at these issues, look at these stories, look at these topics, make sense of them in some way. Make sense of them in some way that aids your healing. Your individual self carries those wounds unconsciously or otherwise, but the ancestral trauma that your relatives experienced does have an effect on the way that you approach the world in your waking life. And this is the time to be kind with that part of you. There might be things that you see falling away from your most visible self, from your public-facing self, the part that is so concerned with harmonics, with balance, with fairness. This might be a moment in time, and if just but for a moment, this might be a time where you set down that concern for equity, and you focus in on your own pain for a time. This might be a time where you get to go through the paper trail of your ancestral lines and witness and acknowledge the sacrifice and the pain that each of those individuals went through to get to this point. Witness your own sacrifice and your own pain as you struggle through this point on planet Earth too. There's an autonomy that the Emperor wants. There's something in this card that says, what about me? And maybe this is something that you can take with you, if not just but for a moment. It's okay to be selfish sometimes, Capricorn Rising. I know that that doesn't sort of wash with you, but it is okay to be selfish sometimes. And if that means sitting in the reality of your pain, but working with it, is the thing that's going to make the difference. And when I say working with it, it's not sort of trying to ascend or get over it or, rise above it or hit a higher vibration. It's about honoring that physicality in your own self. Perhaps there's something about a tight throat or a tight chest, a sore back. It's sort of like, where is this sort of coming from? It's coming from suppression. It's coming from a feeling of being voiceless. We're at a point in time across the planet where there is so many folks that are voiceless, and it's agonizing to witness. There are so many folks that feel righteous enough and bold enough with their own voice in a very immeticulous, very inconsiderate way. A lot of selfishness that we can absorb right now at this time. And so I want this eclipse season for you to not be an overwhelming period where you bury yourself. I want it to be a place where you can be like, I'm reacting to this because of these topics. You might find yourself in a place of privilege. You might find yourself in a place where the color of your skin or the amount of money of your forefathers, your ancestors, has you in a place where you don't feel in connection with pain on a scale that's being discussed right now. But there's other things that occurred in your lineage, in your state of mind about a safe space to land that has a conflicted space for you where you don't trust the safe space to land, or you never had one and you've been spending your whole life running. This eclipse season might be the moment where these topics are brought up again, and if they are, I'd encourage you to be kind with yourself as you move through it. The two eclipses are being led or being informed by the planets that rule these signs, them being Venus for Libra and Mars for Aries. Both of these planets have gone through another initiation. If you remember, there was an initiation into Aquarius via Pluto. Well, now they're having to confront and face the boundary and the container of Saturn in Pisces. Now, this is back over to your third house, your house of your village, your house of your neighborhood. And there's been a restriction there. There's been some sort of container around your sort of more magical qualities of Pisces. But these two planets kind of bookend these eclipses. This passed through Saturn, this boundary setting. Venus, for one, passed through Saturn right before the eclipse in Libra, and then right after the eclipse in Aries, Mars will come face to face and have to pass through Saturn as well. The difference in those feelings is that Venus is much more amiable, much more available to the energies in which they pass. And so there might be something of setting a nice healthy container, a boundary in your relationships that was encouraged with Venus passing through. But then with Mars, this is tension. This is a potential for anger. So I'd like for you to remain safe in your local environment, in your village. And I'd like for you to remember as well the Hellenistic definition of the third house, which is the house of the goddess. So this is where we pray to. I feel that there's a sense of urgency with finding ourselves and our right to pray. Everybody has a right to pray to whomever they wish to. If the prayers are coming from a loving space that wishes for peace and protection, then everyone can pray. I don't mind who you pray to. It's up to you. And I believe every single one of you. This feels like an absolute moment, doesn't it? This solar eclipse across the United States conjunct Chiron. There's this urgency to find the pain points, to find where this pain keeps on arising. This is something that is going to lead the world into its election seasons too. So I'm not a mundane astrologer. I can't speak to it so much. There are many others that can. I suggest you look out for them. There's some great information out there. But you can see, and you can probably feel it already, Capricorn Rising, this feeling of overwhelm. You know, since the sun entered Aries, since Aries season began on the 20th, it's been like, all right, whoa, okay, let's do this. Or let's hide. Whichever way you go, make sure that you're being absolutely sweet to yourself as much as you're able. Topics around ancestry and our root system do carry with them a lot of wounding. I'm not sure for everyone, but I can fairly confidently say for most. And if that's in your position as a parent or your position as a caregiver, in your position as a child of a caregiver or a parent, you know, there's a worry here that's rising. And so if we can use this eclipse season with absolute intention and focus on our breath, we'll be okay. We'll be able to breathe through it, and we'll be able to see ourselves clear to the other side. So with that, Capricorn Rising, I know that was a lot of strange dates, but you can stop and you can write them down if you want to. Come back and listen to this again if the going gets tough. But I want to pull you some tarot now. As we sit in the J.H. Lynch painting that I've created for the earth signs from now on, I had a dream when Mercury was conjunct Neptune of a very bright, vivid, deep, healing blue. And I knew that I had to incorporate that somehow into my life, into my work. And so I've devoted that color to the water signs, and I've wanted to change it up a bit and to work with elemental magic, to work with the traditional colors of that practice. And so green is where we find earth. I used to have yellow for earth because I liked that sort of ochre kind of muddy of the earth feeling. I'm a painter, so I often think in painting colors. But I do like this green. I like the verdant quality. I like that when you zoom out on the earth, it's representative of that beautiful green color, but also the living world around us, the hope after after death. You know, everything gets blown away, but then new growth emerges from beneath the charred surface. You've got a lot of love to give here, Capricorn Rising. There's something really nice that we can work with the energy of the Queen of Cups during eclipse season. This is someone that's incredibly available to speak to you about how you've been feeling, very able to connect with you on an emotional level. When I think about this, I'm kind of looking to your 7th house too, which is Cancer, which is a water element. So there's something here in conversation, in company with this individual that's going to have you in some feeling of reconciliation. And I'm not going to say that this is reconciliation with an old lover. It doesn't look so much like that. It looks like a relationship with someone that knows who you are at your core and can give you the medicine that you need to heal emotionally. There's going to be a lot of room over the next 3 weeks for honesty with one another. And it feels tense and it feels brittle at the moment. But the way to solve this is to open up. We have to open up, because if we calcify and calcify and calcify, it's like an oyster trying to be shucked off a pier. It gets more and more and more difficult. We're going to weather this storm, but we're going to invite emotional connection. I think that's what that blue was really telling me quite strongly in my dream, was like there is depth to this. There's depth to this. If you're working in the elements and you're working with the water signs, sure. Lovely, intuitive, caring, nurturing, kind, sweet. Also deep blue sea. We all contain an ocean, Capricorn Rising, and some of us have an easier access to that depth than others. And so perhaps during eclipse season, I would recommend that you come into contact with someone who can listen to you, who can listen to how you've been feeling, someone that you trust, someone that has emotional literacy, and someone that can encourage you to go deep. Because it's hard for you sometimes, and that's all right. That's all right. It's spooky. It's spooky to go there. But with the right individual, you can trust that you're going to come up from that depth. There's lots to explore in our water, the water of our chart. In your 7th house of your relationships, there's a lot of people there ready and willing and able to help you up, to break that surface. Much love to you, Capricorn Rising. If you're still here with me, can you please put a guitar in the comments in honor of my favorite Libra Rising, Courtney Love? If I've not met you before and you'd like me to read your birth chart, I'll draw you one. They look like this, and you can make an appointment for me to read it to you on Zoom via my website, Uma Ruby. If I have read for you before, head back to my website and pick another. You can pick a magic, a truth, a growth, a love, or a femme reading. And we can go through the current transits in the sky. We can look at your chart, and we can take you on a journey with the tarot and go deep. You've got my heart. If you'd like to support my work, you can head to buymeacoffee.com/UmaRuby. You can subscribe or throw some money in the tip jar. I will be with you soon after the eclipses have eased. I'm also working on some other projects, or one other project in particular, that hopefully I will have consolidated and feeling right in time to send it out. So there'll be more chats that we can have, but maybe less to do with your astrology and more to do with someone else's. Take care, Capricorn Rising, and I'll speak to you very soon. Hello, Taurus Rising. Welcome to your reading for eclipse season, first round of 2024. Now, I've decided to do things a little bit differently this time, Taurus Rising. Rather than give you separate horoscopes for each of the lunations, I've decided to speak about eclipses together, to give myself a rest through the eclipse season too, and to also look at the polarity of our chart and find the unity. I think that it's really, really important at this time to consider the astrology in terms of that wonderful figure 8 that connects and binds opposites, polarities together and brings it together as one. So we're going to be speaking about 2 signs, well, actually 3, but I'll get there. For the eclipses, we'll be speaking about Libra and we'll be speaking about Aries. So Libra, in terms of our sense of justice, in terms of our sense of fairness, equity, right relationship, and harmony. Remember that Libra, the sign, as the Justice card is ruled by the planet Venus. So it's the planet of love, the planet of connection, of bringing things together. In the esoteric philosophy, the mantra for Libra is, I choose the way that leads between the great 2 lines of force. And I think that that is so pertinent for this moment, for these next 3 weeks, but for our lives moving forward. On the other end of this spectrum, we have a solar eclipse in the sign Aries. And so this is the card that speaks to Aries, the Emperor, our sense of self-determination, our sense of individuation, our sense of autonomy over our own selves, our own bodies, our own futures. We are all the Emperor. We are all the Justice card too. We are all Libra. We are all Aries. We are all Taurus in some capacity. Now let's get to the nuts and bolts of this period. The reason that I have decided to lump them together and give myself a rest is because at eclipse season, at eclipse times, we do not have any access to the moon. And that can be really confronting for people that have found themselves in a rhythm with the moon's cycles. In the ancient times, the folks of planet Earth used to believe that a dragon was eating the sun or eating the moon. And so there was a sense of fear around eclipse season. There was a growing dread and a growing worry that either crops would die out or that there was some sort of curse being placed upon the people of Earth. Now we know that that isn't true. We know that there is no malevolent force out there cursing us into this reality. What we do as people with empathy and with a heart is we register the pain that either we are in or that the world is suffering. And if we want to use astrology, we can find a mirror here. We can find a pattern. And as one of my favorite astrologers, Channing Nicholas, says, we can wait it out. The astrology is a reminder that this too shall pass, which is a beautiful phrase that my mother always says to me when the going gets tough. I got to say, the going can get tough these days. So let's have a look at your birth chart, Taurus Rising. Let's look at this feeling of shedding in Libra, this feeling of shedding, and this feeling of influx in Aries. For you, it's in a very specific part of your unconscious world. Aries is the sign that was rising before you were born. As a Taurus rising, we know that the sign Taurus was cresting that eastern horizon the moment you took your first breath from your time of birth. And this means that the sign that was rising before you were born was that of Aries, the sign of individuality, the sign of conviction, of self-confidence, the sign of the initiator. And so this is the world that we're going to be looking at, a solar eclipse that will be happening on the 9th of April. So a while away from now, and not before the lunar eclipse in Libra. But just to give you that visual on your birth chart, your 12th house speaks to the unconscious. It speaks to your ancestors in some way, if you have spiritual connection with them. It could have an experience or a relationship with your past incarnations, if that's something that you believe in, but you don't have to. In fact, there are many different philosophies that can be attached to the 12th house. I like to think of the 12th house as the house that informs my dreams, that speaks to my unconscious reality, my unconscious knowing, the part of my chart that I can journey in, either through dreams or through deep meditation. It's very private and it's very sincere. And so on the opposite side of that scale, we come to the 6th house, which is where Libra is for you. And in definition, there's a polarity there. If the 12th is unconscious and spiritual and connected to our dreams, the 6th house is connected to our lived experience, our harsher reality on this planet, our work, our service, our servitude sometimes. And so you can see there's that one definition informs the other, because we're working in polarity, we're working in opposites, and we're trying to find the unity here. The first eclipse will occur on the 25th of March, I think the day that I'm publishing these. And this will be encouraging you to shed something that feels like shackles. This is the way I'm reading this to you, Taurus Rising. If we think that Libra is justice, if we think the 6th house is servitude, if we think about the concept of feeling bound or tied or chained or subservient to something, this eclipse with the dragon's tail involved is asking you to shed, to let it free, to see it go. And so remember that during eclipses, during an unstable moon, we don't really do much work with it. So you might feel this occurring without your say-so or encouragement or involvement. But I'm preparing you for this because it looks hopeful to me, Taurus Rising. We move around the calendar, around the zodiac, to the 9th of April in the Southern Hemisphere, if you're here with me in Australia. And there will be the grand solar eclipse in Aries, which will be exactly conjunct the asteroid Chiron. We know that Chiron speaks to unconscious wounding, don't we? How pertinent to have that emblem of the galaxy in your house of the unconscious. This eclipse, with the dragon's head facing it, chomping up the sun, very visible across the United States of America. And so we hold all of our US friends in our hearts at this time. But this moment looks like a pinpoint. If we're thinking about your unconscious reality, Taurus Rising, if we're thinking about the parts of you that you just can't heal for yourself, not even heal, name. Where is this wounding? Where has it come from? Has it come from my lived experience here on this planet? And indeed it may have done. In fact, I'm urging you to, with the company of great therapists, uncover these points, because that's a great moment for healing and self-understanding. In astrological terms, we're speaking about something that is hidden, that is behind some sort of curtain. But the dragon and the eclipse and Chiron are bringing it to the surface. You might want to write to your ancestors. You might want to write to your past lives, your past loves, your past incarnations. You might want to use your heart and use your mind and journey back there during eclipse season, gently and slowly and with support and with company around you. There's something that I feel a coming together during eclipse season. In fact, I see it. I feel that there's going to be moments of group activation rather than separation. The dissonance or the polarity of this time, of this life, has been steadily growing for years and years and years and years and years. In fact, maybe it was always there, but in my conscious reality, I'm really coming to grips with the division. And I think that this axis of eclipses on a place that does speak to individual autonomy, self-actualization, and fairness, rightness, balance. You can see that something has to give here, Taurus rising. And on your birth chart, it feels very personal. There may be some journeys you can take with your ancestors during this time that might support you through the instability of the moon. Some of us folks, we treat the moon like a friend. We're in good company with the moon. And so when it's unstable, we are worried. Something about friendship. I don't know if you've ever had a friend that you've been worried about or you've felt their instability. It can be destabilizing for yourself to witness that. But there is a grounding that you can find in separation from them, and also an opportunity to come back together with them. Maybe there's been times in your life where you've felt that you were the unstable one, or that there was a growing sense of instability, a sense that you couldn't trust yourself internally or externally. And it took a moment to hit the bottom, or it took a moment to really just spin out of control. And then the shame emerged. How am I going to come back to these friendships after I've crashed and burned so sincerely? You'll find that if you've got love in your heart, and if you've got love in your soul, people that do care about you, people that do love you, will find room for forgiveness. And this isn't to say that you need forgiveness, Taurus rising, but you can see that polarity that I'm speaking to. There's something about that moment of needing forgiveness and that moment of needing to provide forgiveness. That with a sensitive soul and a sensitive heart we can come to. We can come to understand that it's available to us and it's available to others. I forgive you is a powerful sentiment. And obviously in an age where everyone is protecting themselves from bad behavior and from toxicity in relationships, this isn't advice to let everyone in. But this is advice to let the right one in at this time, Taurus rising. This is time to trust yourself, to go deep, to journey into your unconscious, and to, with the support of trusted others, face this wounding and release yourself from some of these shackles, some of these containers that you've put yourself under. Speaking of containers, these two eclipses are being informed by other planets too. So I'll bring up the cards again. Mars is the planet that rules Aries, and Venus is the planet that rules Libra, and you, funnily enough. But when thinking about these eclipses, it sometimes can help to look at the planets that rule the signs of which they occur. Stop me if this is getting too confusing, or pause it. But what I'm telling you is that Mars and Venus have both gone through, or both will go through, some other form of initiation. If you remember how I was talking about Mars and Venus in initiation through Pluto into Aquarius, we're at a point where they both need to pass by Saturn in Pisces. Venus will have done so a few days before the first eclipse on the 22nd of March, I think. And so that confrontation, or that maybe pep talk about a healthy, protective boundary. Venus is the one that wants us to love, and Saturn is the one that wants us to constrict. So this could be helpful as far as releasing yourself from the shackles with this Libra lunar eclipse. Perhaps all of this talk about forgiveness that we've just been through still needs something of a healthy boundary to keep your values safe as well. And perhaps there's something about respecting the boundary of others too. It takes bravery to offer an apology. It takes bravery to accept an apology too. Then the Libra eclipse happens. Then Mercury stations retrograde in Aries on the 2nd of April. I'm not even going to bother with that with you, but you understand. Then the Aries solar eclipse happens on the 9th of April, and a few days after, Mars will have to pass by Saturn. Aries, 12th, unconscious. Pisces on your chart is your 11th house, your sense of humanity, your humanitarian spirit. All those chats we've had around the boundary that's needed to be enforced here, the Saturnian ring of protection to keep your empathy not drowning you for witnessing the pain that folks are in around the planet. These two planets are bookending these eclipses. So there is something about boundary. In fact, I think the conversation we had around forgiveness is quite pertinent here, Taurus Rising. And I think the conversation around the bravery it takes to apologize, and also the bravery to accept what is offered to you after an apology, is pertinent too. I'm going to get you some tarot because I've just been, well, it's 2 horoscopes, so fuck the sand, who cares? Let's get you some tarot. I hope that you like this green color. I'm sitting with green for now. For my earth signs, I had an incredible dream, several incredible dreams about blue. And I was trying to figure out what my dreams were trying to tell me with this incredible depth of color. It enveloped me and it incarnated in many different ways. Some of it was really exciting and really sensual. Some of it was really protective and really vital. But this blue had permeated my unconscious, speaking of the 12th house. And so I looked at my transits, and it turned out that Mercury was in conjunction with Neptune at that time in Pisces, which is my first house. And so I felt that Neptune was speaking to me about depth. It's all well and good to witness the love and affection and kindness and sweetness of the water signs. It's essential that we witness their depth too. And I think the depth of my feeling was really being highlighted. And so I've decided to incorporate that blue into the water signs. You'll probably flick over and see the water signs are all bathed in that blue. But then I thought, let's think about elemental magic. Let's think about what the traditions of the past used, what colors they used for the elements. I was using yellow for ochre. I'm a painter, so it's the ochre of the earth. But I like this verdant green, this growth. Sits really well with the earth signs for me. If you zoom out from planet Earth, it's all green. I think about the lushness of life, that our hard work, the results of our hard work, the results of our labor, have us enjoy the beautiful tender leaves of new growth. And it's also quite J.H. Lynch too, don't you think? You'll look them up. Speaking of seeds, speaking of collaboration, speaking of forgiveness, there's something of a seed here for you, Taurus Rising. There's a great moment of acceptance that I feel for you here. I want you to think around in your mind and think about the folks that exist in your life and who makes you feel grounded. Who makes you feel protected? And it doesn't matter how old they are. They could be very young. But there's something about the wisdom of growth here that is being offered to you. And it's come after a period of a juggling act. Speaking of this sort of polarity, it's come after a period of keeping this up in the air or keeping this up in the air, and a kind of solo enterprise of doing so. But this is a sort of chance to collaborate that I'm looking at, a chance to go deeper. The reason I say go deeper is because the Chariot has arrived. Speaking of that blue, the Chariot is unafraid to step forward into the depths of emotional integrity. So perhaps this offer, this groundedness, is also informing your emotional self too. I wonder if this balance that we're speaking of is trying to keep your mind frame in balance. And maybe this offer is coming from someone that you trust, that you can see a way forward into reconciling some of this turbulence. So think about who it is, and in this eclipse period, I think that it's a pretty safe bet that you can reach out to them too. We can't trust the moon, unfortunately, but we can trust ourselves, and we can trust our growth as well, Taurus Rising. That's your reading. I hope that it wasn't too complex. I hope that it sort of makes sense to you. The words have been choking me. Speaking of blue, speaking of the throat chakra, I haven't been able to get them out, and I've been sinking, I'll be honest with you, but I am finding my footing, and I'm finding the integrity of my actions to be proving some results. And I find that my commitment with my own depth is something that will be with me for the rest of my life. However, that's a commitment to my depth that will be with me for the rest of my life. I hope for you too. We don't heal and get over it and move on. Sometimes we go around, but it's what tools we have to face that depth that make the difference as we move around and forwards and sideways and twirling and twirling. If you're still here with me, Taurus Rising, please put a guitar in the comments for me in honor of my favorite Libra Rising, Courtney Love. If you'd like me to read your birth chart for you, they look like this, and I will draw one for you and read it to you via Zoom at umaruby.com. If I have read for you before and you'd like another reading, head to my website and pick a magic, a truth, a growth, a love, or a femme reading. And we'll re-examine your chart with the transits in mind, and we'll go really deep with tarot. There's a journey for each of those key words and different places we can travel together to unearth what you already know. Much love to you, Taurus Rising. If you'd like to support my work, head to buymeacoffee.com/umaruby. You can put some money in the tip jar there, and I'll be with you when the eclipses ease. So not for a little while, but I am using this time to create some other work too. So hopefully I'll have that ready for you in time to share. I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Hello Virgo Rising, welcome to your reading for eclipse season, the first round of 2024. So I'm doing something a little bit different this time, Virgo Rising. I hope that that's okay with you. But rather than give you separate horoscopes for each of the eclipses, I've decided to speak about them both and how they're interacting with one another as one period of our lives. The polarity of the signs involved and also the houses on your birth chart in order to find some sense of cohesion. I really feel quite strongly that polarity is destructive at this time, and you can probably witness that too. The opposing forces or opposing voices or opposing sides are becoming ravenous to destroy the other. And I think that astrology has great clues for us about reconciliation, the reconciliation of polarity. In fact, recognizing what you have in common with someone else other than what you have that is different. So there's two signs that will take major focus in this reading, and then a third as well, but I'll get to that in a moment. The first two that we will speak of is Libra. There will be a lunar eclipse in Libra on the 25th of March if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. And this is a moment that harks back to a very difficult period of our planet's history. October 15th of last year was the last eclipse that occurred in Libra. And so when thinking about the sign, when feeling out the qualities of right relationship, justice, fairness, equilibrium, harmony, when thinking about eclipses in this sign that involve the south lunar node, the dragon's tail, there's something of these topics that feel eclipsed, that feel like they've shed. And we change the language to injustice, to unfairness, to cruelty, discordiance, all of these kinds of things. So that's one side of the scale. We know that eclipse season is unstable energy. We know that we can't rely on the moon for a period of a month or so, which can be unstable for a lot of people. A lot of people rely on the moon and its rhythm to find their own rhythm. On the other side of this scale, on the 9th of April, we have a solar eclipse total in Aries. And this solar eclipse is in an exact conjunction with the asteroid Chiron, who has been pulling a lot of focus of late. Chiron being the cosmic body that speaks to unconscious wounding, to pain points that lay deep, perhaps below the surface of our knowing as well, deep, old wounding. So it's intense time. When looking at these two signs, the polarity of these signs, one speaks to absolute autonomy and individuality and self-expression, self-determination, self-centeredness. The other one speaks to a collaborative effort, group concern, worry and service to benefit other and to benefit oneself, to balance out the scale. When looking at these two together, you can see how too much self-centeredness leads to an imbalance. Too much devotion to the other also leads to an imbalance too. We must incorporate our own needs as much as the others in these times. We must think about our lives, especially if you're in partnership, as a cooperation, rather than one continually giving out and giving over and giving through to the other person's needs, and rather than taking everything for our own, taking center focus and having our needs met and only met with no regard for the other person. You can see that too much of one thing shifts it off and out of keel. When looking at your birth chart, Virgo Rising, we're speaking of two signs in two houses that speak to similar but different topics. I'll explain how. Your autonomy, your access to resources, your finances, and the way that you take care of yourself is informed by the sign Libra. Your 8th house of collaborations, where your energy is invested and collaborative with that of the other, where you're involved with a collaborative effort, is Aries. Now, what I'm looking at here is a beautiful moment, a beautiful 3 weeks to start to pick apart and tease out what you're committed to and in what way you're committed to that. It's a great time for you to start thinking about your life in terms of what you are obliged to do, what are you obligated to in this life, and what you are happily and freely involved with. Obligation isn't a dirty word. Commitment isn't a dirty word. Standing strong in solidarity with those that you love through difficult times is honorable. But there's something that the eclipses and the dragon is urging you to shed at this time and drawing your attention to quite sincerely, with no say-so from your own, no magic, no working with the moon or the stars or anything. The dragon takes precedence. And what we're looking at, what we're being directed to, is Aries in your house of collaborations, in your house that involves your energy, your resources with other people. The tail is enforcing a shedding in your second house of your individual value. There's something here that the tail is knocking away about the fairness or the justification of your individual sense of self-worth, and is drawing our attention to how you feel or find autonomy in your collaborative efforts. It feels unbalanced to me on both terms. You can see how it's sort of quite pertinent at this time when there is so much language around injustice, inequity, when there is so much language around give and take, when there is so much language that pits us against one another on the basis of our gender, our sexuality, our skin, our religion. You can see that there is almost like a jolt to the system that's occurring with these eclipses that is forcing coming back to center ground, forcing everything to come back into the middle. And I don't give you this reading as a foreboding omen of what's to come. I give you this reading to register how important your equity is, how important your value is as much as the others, how your sense of self-worth and your sense of self-value are just as needed as your investment in the other. And take that as you will. This could be in your very personal life, your relationships. This could be broader. This could be something to do with your nationality. This could be something to do with your group, however you feel grouped in, however you're engaging in reciprocal relationships that give and flow at this time are being eclipsed. There's an urgency to find the wounding in your collaborations, the pain points. And this could be something of a sense of rejection, if in terms of, applying for grants and things like that, or in collaborative work, when you're working with a group. There could be something here that is pointing to this sense of smallness that maybe has been latent with you for some time, where you don't feel that your contribution is worthy enough, or where you feel your contribution is being overlooked. And you can take that and can transpose that onto your loving relationship. You can transpose that onto your relationship with your family. You can transpose that onto your relationship with your culture too, if you wanted to. But there's something about your voice here, your needs, I should say, less to do with the voice. I would say we're in a space of needs at the moment. What we need to feel welcome, to feel valuable, to feel that our hard work is being funneled into a space that is generative. And the eclipses are happening here. So unstable. There's a little glimmer of extra information that I'd like to give to you, and I don't want to labor these readings with too much astrological confusion, because I know all too well how when you start to layer this stuff, it just becomes incontrollable. I do struggle with that myself, but this seems like a pattern that I can speak to quite confidently. So these two eclipses are speaking to Libra and to Aries. I've put Libra in reverse here because this is the shedding. This is where things are being let go of. This is where a sense of injustice might arrive for you in terms of your own coffers, your own finances. Libra is ruled by the planet Venus, and Aries is ruled by the planet Mars. And both of these two planets have gone through, or will go through, another initiation. If you remember the initiation into Aquarius some months ago through Pluto, well, now they've had to come face to face with Saturn. And in the traditional sense of astrology that existed before a telescope, Saturn was the limits of our galaxy. Saturn was the outer scope that we could see with the naked eye. And so there's a lot to do with karmic retribution. There is a lot to do with a container, the passage of time here. in your birth chart, Saturn has been in Pisces in your 7th house of your loving relationships. So I'll cast your memory back to all of those conversations that we've had around needing to keep a magical container of protection around your beloveds and away from perhaps people in your 7th house that are not with you at present, that are not respecting you at this present, that are speaking against you at this present time. Venus passed through Saturn on the 22nd of March, so a few days before the eclipse in Libra. So Venus speaking to your 2nd house of your value and your money, speaking to this eclipse, this shedding. So there's a link here to your relationships. A few days after the solar eclipse in Aries, which will be conjunct Chiron, the wounding, Mars and Saturn will come into a face-off in your 7th house of your relationships. And so this might be a further examination or a further tremors that occur around this house of collaboration. I want you to think about this really gently, but really clearly, Virgo rising. And I'd like for you to register potential aggression and fights that may arise around the 11th of April moving forward. Because it feels to me that you have vested your energy in collaborations that are wounding you all the while. And it's taken you a long time to figure out that to be a fact. And you've had to hold and bunker down because resources are obliged and there are limits to this collaboration, because it's essential that you get what you need from these people, or you are responsible for giving them what they need. But there's something of a complete friction here that can't go on any longer. The structure of your investments, your collaborations, and your relationships needs to change for you to be healthy and happy. And so Venus was sweet about it in March, right before the eclipse. Mars is going to be quite aggressive about it after the eclipses are through. Bang in the center of this hectic charge, Mercury will station retrograde in Aries. So unfortunately, your guiding light, the part of the galaxy that has you be able to glean and understand the information that you're being given, is unstable itself. So what I see for you is a lot of confusion, Virgo rising, but I see this as a moment for you to register that and to wait it out. One of my favorite astrologers, Channing Nicholas, always says that the galaxy is but a reflection of the inner workings of our life. We don't use this work to predict the worst. We use it to give our lives context, and we also use it to give ourselves hope in the timeline, because eclipse season only lasts for 4 weeks, and we're going to be able to work with what we're left with after the fact. The central message for you, Virgo rising, is about your collaborations. And this doesn't have to mean financially. This can be energetically. This can be emotionally too. The 8th house can often speak to grief. And we grieve people for many different reasons. Sometimes we grieve them, obviously, for their passing, for their death. Sometimes we grieve them because we don't recognize them anymore. And that love that we shared is untenable moving forward. Sometimes we grieve the physical presence of them in our lives because they're not near us as they used to be. And so the relationship has to shift, and the investment and the terms of that investment have to change in order to keep that relationship alive too. But this is the focus of your reading, Virgo rising, the Aries place, the Aries that does have your bravery rub off on other people. what feels like deception and misinformation, and not even lies, but just cruelty is what it feels like. And that defensiveness that you've needed to muster, and probably quite literally with your magic, casting rings of salt or protecting your energy from those that might harm you. This eclipse season is going to provide you with a break in those waves and hopefully some sort of enforced resolution. Eclipses aren't always terrible. In fact, they sometimes can be an influx of opportunity. So if the dragon is facing this and we look at it as an influx of opportunity, it might be the opportunity for you to develop relationships that honor you and your emotions and your feelings at this time, that respect you for the adult that you are, that don't treat you like a child, that recognize that you've been working hard on your own path, and that this is your life and this is the road that you're going to travel, and that you're facing this difficulty with grace and with courage. I love you, Virgo Rising. All my very best love and protection for eclipse season. If you're still here with me, put a guitar in the comments, please, in honor of my favorite Libra rising, Courtney Love. I will be with you soon, after the eclipses have faded, after we have a moon that we can trust and we can rely on. I'll be back with some horoscopes. In the meantime, if you'd like to speak to me, I can draw your birth chart, and you can make an appointment for me to read that to you at umoruby.com. I'm also working on some separate projects too, so I'm using this time in incubation to hopefully present some information to you, some artwork, some astrological study that's maybe separate to your individual horoscopes, but hopefully we'll find a connecting tissue there that brings us all together. Don't quote me, but I hope to have it released in the next couple of weeks. You can subscribe to my work at umoruby.com for $10 Australian a month, or you can put some money in the tip jar. That would be very much appreciated during these very difficult times. And I will love you forever, and I'll speak to you very soon. My best love and protection to you, Virgo Rising. I trust that you know what you're doing, and I trust that you are going to be safe while doing so. All my love.